Heat were crushed by the Warriors on Monday, and we'll break down what went wrong. But with 43 games already played this season, it's time to assess where Miami stands, their strengths, their weaknesses, and what to expect moving forward. A difficult challenge given what we've seen so far, Wes.
It might be time for a calculated step back, David.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Join the Cookie Gang, become an everydayer. That means subscribing, tuning in every day, Monday through Friday, and signing up for the Everydayer Club with the link in the show notes. I'm Wes Goldberg, host of Locked On NBA Daily and Real Jam Radio. I'm here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. Got a ton to get to today. We're sort of at the midway point of the season. We're a little bit past it, so we're kind of fudging with the numbers here, but it is a good opportunity for us right now to zoom out and take a look at where we've been so far this season, and obviously, most importantly, where we are going. Recording this Tuesday morning after the Heat's late night loss to the Golden State Warriors, also after the University of Miami's loss to Indiana in the national championship game. David, there was a ton going on last night, a reason for us to bump our usual recording from late night to early morning. But before we jump into all this Miami Heat stuff, look, you and I both were rooting for the Hurricanes last night. That is such a local story. It's such a big deal. Disappointing, especially the way that thing ended, David. I know you were watching with the Carson Beck interception at the end, but I don't know, man. Maybe I'm turning soft when I have a kid now or something, and I'm just like enjoying moments and stuff. But I was disappointed. It was a tough loss, but I also felt like really grateful for a tremendous season from Miami, and the fact that we got back to the national championship for the first time since 2001, just to get back there and what that program is building right now, and being able to watch guys like Malachi Toney and all that kind of stuff this year. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't get that hurt about it, as disappointed as I was. I kind of left feeling weirdly grateful, but maybe I'm just getting soft at my age.
No, I don't think it's soft. I'm starting to feel the same way in some regards. I think covering a sport professionally really shows you just how difficult it is to even get to the point where you can compete for a championship. And so when you're at that level where you're actually in the championship game, as difficult as it was for Miami all season long, you just kind of, I think you tend to see the other side of it where it's like, you know what, a lot has to go into it. A lot has to break right. It's not just so simple. Sometimes the best teams don't even make it to the championship game. And if you're there, you have an opportunity, and if it doesn't go your way, as it didn't go for the Hurricanes, at least you can still take some solace from that. Having said all that, it really sucks because I don't know when we'll see it again. So I'm kind of heartbroken.
We can't take it for granted, right? Like it
No.
was, like I said, since 2001 was the last time we got that far, and still haven't won the ACC despite the fact that we got back to the national championship games. So weird. I just wish that we would have won so that Notre Dame could cry more about it. That's like my biggest disappointment. But are you wearing a hoodie right now? It's that green. Is that what it is? Let's go.
Absolutely. Go Canes, baby.
Go Canes.
Always.
So they were not the only team that lost in Miami last night. It was also the Miami Heat who lost in San Francisco against the Golden State Warriors. It was sort of a close game, a weird game. Steph Curry really didn't have it going. Jimmy Butler leaves early in the game with an ACL tear, reported this morning by Shams that it's going to be season ending. So that's a big deal for the Golden State Warriors. And then for the Heat, the Warriors just sort of pulled away at the end. It was a rough outing for Bam, who just missed a bunch of point-blank shots. Nobody else really stepped up in a meaningful way. Just one of those, I don't know, weird late night. I'm kind of drowsy, hungover from the, emotionally from the Hurricane game, like watching the end of that thing. Do you have a major takeaway from that one? Because it just felt like it was one of those weird games on the road. A bunch of missed shots that you usually make. I'm not trying to make excuses. We're going to get critical about this team here in a second, but that Warriors loss was a weird one.
It was. I guess the travel probably played a part in it. And I know that players should be used to it, but maybe coming after a high from beating Oklahoma City over the weekend and then traveling all the way to San Francisco, a late start, your kind of rhythm is off, and that was pretty evident. That's not an excuse. I just think it's more of a statement of fact than anything else. But that doesn't mean that Miami should have played the way they did. Like, I understand being thrown off a little bit, but you still have to try to find a way to muster some kind of more consistent effort. And you look at what they did in the second half, and they were just abysmal, allowing Golden State to just blow the game open from that point. And that's without Butler on the floor. And so I think Miami, it's just shown over the course of the season, and I know that we're going to use this kind of as a springboard for this same conversation, but their inconsistencies are baffling and maddening, especially for our fans who are listening and watching this show and wondering what the heck to make of this team, because you get them capable of beating the best team in the league in Oklahoma City and then kind of falling apart against a mediocre Warriors team. And that's not even the worst loss of the season. And we've seen it all year round. They just haven't been able to muster a steady string of consistent winning at any point. They just don't do anything particularly well that consistently. And you look at everything that's going on this season, it's like, yep, they're right back where they were last year. Last year's team really was sucked. Last year's team was really, really bad. And they had the whole Jimmy Butler saga that was eating away at that locker room on a nightly basis. And they're almost at the same record that they were last year. That's more of an indictment than anything else, is that you had all this going on last year. And I think the roster was even worse last year, dealing with the hangover issues of everything going on with Jimmy. And then you're a better team showing such joy and such promise at the start of the season. And here you are 43 games into the year, and you're like exactly where you were just last year. So I don't know what needs to happen. I don't know what needs to change, but something clearly does.
Last thing on that game, because then we will jump into the bigger picture conversation there. But, I'm you know me, right? Process over results, right? If you look at the way that the Heat were getting shots last night, they weren't bad shots. They were getting to the rim. They were just missing a bunch of shots. Bam was 1 of 13 in that game. And a lot of those shots at point blank. And I don't, he was the worst out of all of them, but it wasn't just him, right? Like Davion Mitchell, 1 for 6, Jaime, 4 for 12. A lot of those shots from, areas of the court where you want to get your shots from, you look at the shot quality. And the Heat actually had a better shot quality than the Warriors did in that game. Miami goes 13 of 45 from three-point range, so under 30%. Golden State went 24 of 51. They shot 47% from three. Sometimes the make or miss part of it, it's so easy to get bogged down in the, oh my God, they made all their shots and we missed it and you're missing the point blank. I don't think the Heat played bad. I just think they missed a lot of shots. Now, if they did play, like, they got more offensive rebounds, right? I talked about that after the game in Oklahoma City, where that has become a major focal point of what the Heat want to do going forward. Is they want to win the offensive rebound and possession battle in a major way. They want to, they want to make offense by volume, right? And it didn't matter what the volume was, even though they took more shots in this game than Golden State did because they shot so poorly. Golden State shot 52% overall, like I said, 47% from three. The 19 turnovers, 27 points off of turnovers, that's the bugaboo. That's the part where if you're Erik Spoelstra, you're looking at it this morning and saying, we can't let that happen. If we mitigate that, then maybe we have a chance in this game. But then again, like Brandon Podziemski's just hitting crazy shots in that fourth quarter, and nobody was really doing that for the Heat. So process versus results. Did I like the process for the Heat? I didn't mind it. I thought it was okay outside of the turnovers. I thought Golden State just ended up, like, Quentin Post going 4 for 5 from three-point range. Like, what are you going to do about that? Like, Buddy Hield finally breaking out of his shooting slump, going 4 of 7 from three-point range. Like, sometimes you just chalk that up to, well, I guess they had the good shooting night and we didn't. That said, this, to your point, David, happens so frequently that I do think that the Heat, given their roster, I kind of think they've been playing really well lately, even if the results aren't what we want them to be. They haven't won consecutive games since January 1st. That's a problem, right? You're not going to climb up the Eastern Conference standings without being able to win 2 straight games. Yep. You're going to have to string together some W's here. I think they've been playing the way that they've wanted to play for the most part. Obviously, there's been games here and there where they haven't.
Yeah,
the problem, I think, is the roster, right? When I talk about make or miss, I guess the problem is like, well, you can get all the 100%. Shots you want. You could be put in the right positions. It's like, but at the end of the day, you got to be talented enough to make shots consistently.
Yeah, I mean, the make or miss variability is fine to use as an outlier if there's a baseline of consistency to making those shots to say, okay, well, they just missed a lot of shots. If you typically hit 45% of your threes and then you go on a 20% night like they did yesterday, then you can point to that and say, oh, yeah, a pretty rough night. But that's not the way it works out for this team because they never shoot consistently enough to say this is something that's an aberration. It's the players on this roster just don't hit those shots often enough at a point in time when Miami absolutely needs them to, where you can point to and say, well, that's just an outlier game. And so I think that's the problem, is that you have these players that are capable of 30-point outings, and then you have players that are capable of the same player capable of a 10-point outing. And you need something a lot more consistent. If the shot isn't falling, get to the line, get to that mid-range, get to the bucket, do something else other than to just rely on that 3-point shot. And I think that's part of the problem. And I know that's an overly simplistic thing, but again, make or miss, you want the player who can make it more often than not. And this hot roster just doesn't have those players on it.
I know you mentioned it wasn't just the threes. They were missing the twos, right? Like they were missing all of the shots. It wasn't like they weren't relying on any shot. They were relying on no shots because none of them were going in. They couldn't make any other 2-pointers. They couldn't make any other 3-pointers. They got to the line more than Golden State did last night. I'm not sure. I know you're not just talking about the Warriors game.
No, I know.
But, you know, I'm not going to get that upset about that Warriors loss. I think the Warriors actually have a lot more to be upset about with Jimmy Butler getting hurt than the Heat do coming out of that one. But look, we're sort of talking about it already. Let's just dive right in. It's our mid-season review. We're basically at the midway point of the season. We're going to hit a bunch of different categories, including who has been the best player for the Heat, what's been their biggest strength, what's been the weakest link so far this season, and then we'll talk about some second-half goals and make some predictions about what decisions the Heat might have to make. All of that coming up next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is where, when a lot of us take a look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses and say, you know what, there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the biggest upgrades you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in just one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. You'll love how simple Quo makes everything, because your whole team can call and text from one shared business number. Nothing gets missed. Everyone sees that full conversation thread, and that makes replying faster and more personal. It works right from your phone or computer, and you can even keep your existing number. And Quo's smart AI tools, well, they automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, you get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen of the day. Thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Heat with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnHeat.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. This is our mid-season review. We're going to talk about who's been the best player, what's been the biggest strength for the Heat, what has been the weakest link, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the second half of the season, including what their goal should be and some decisions we anticipate the Heat may have to make over the next couple of months. But David, let's start right at the top there. Who has been Miami's best player so far this season? It feels like this one's pretty easy.
Yeah. Davion Mitchell. No, I'm sorry. I was
gonna do the Davion Mitchell swerve. Just like he leads the team in on-off net rating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an underrated level of play there for Davion. He's been really solid. And look, this is all you could really hope for. Like I know he was added last year after the trade and kind of a throw in there, and a lot of Heat fans didn't really know what to expect from Davion. I think both you and I were optimistic that he could thrive in his system. He was sensational last year, better than expected. Re-signed this offseason. That felt like a huge win for Miami. And you know what? He's lived up to the contract. He's been their best value player, if nothing else. I think he's been really solid in terms of what he gives his team. Is he going to be spectacular? No. I don't think he's that. I don't think he's wired to be that guy. As good as every NBA player is, he knows his role and he thrives in it. And that's all you need him to be. So at the very least, you can appreciate that. The scoring is never going to be all that consistent because it's still, the shot's not always going to fall. But he gives you the assist numbers. He plays solid defense. he does all the little things very well, and so you can appreciate that. So Davion has been really good, but I think it's pretty clear it's Norm Powell. Like who else? The guy who you can kind of rely on to get that 20-point game. You'd like that to be a little bit more consistent, to my point earlier, and yet I think overall over the course of the season, you can't really find too much fault in Norm's production. For the guy that he was last year for the Clippers and the guy he's been known as throughout his career, he's been even better this year, and I think a lot of people expect him to be selected as an all-star reserve, and I think deservingly so.
So I think he's been tremendously consistent. He's scored at least 20 points in 26 of his 37 appearances this season. He's scored less than 10 points just one time all year in that blowout against the Pacers where he only played 22 minutes. He had 6 points. Other than that, he's been tremendously consistent. And when he's playing well, the Heat win. So there's not like this empty stats, empty calories thing to his scoring. When he scores 30 or more, the Heat are 5-1. And that might sound like, of course they are. That's not the case around the league. Like a lot of times when there's a player that scores a bunch of points, sometimes it doesn't result in winning, right? It just results in that player having a great night, but the team not winning. When Norm Powell plays really well, it tends to be an indication that the Heat's offense is flowing the way that it wants to flow and that things are going the way that they want them to go. And Norm Powell a lot of times is the beneficiary of that. Is he creating a ton for himself? I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think he's creating more for himself than maybe I anticipated going into the season, given that he's basically always been an off-ball kind of guy throughout his career. His ability to just grab the ball and pull up from three. He's got that no-dip three that is just such a weapon from the corner, from above the break, everywhere on the court. And then his ability to make that quick decision in half a second and either decide to make that to pull up from three or to get to the basket. His finishing has been really good this year, right? He's had some really impressive layups and finishes this season. I don't think there's any question that Norm Powell has been Miami's best player. And the other part of this, too, is that his role has fluctuated, right? Not only with the Tyler Herro coming in and out, but Davion Mitchell being in and out. Other players like Jaime Jaquez Jr. being in and out. Sometimes more has been asked from him as a scorer, more as a playmaker, less as a scorer, more as a playmaker, more off ball, less on ball. Whatever the lineups have been, Norm Powell has been, doesn't matter, tremendously consistent. I don't think there's any question he's been Miami's best player. The next thing is here. What has been Miami's biggest strength this season, David?
I couldn't come up with one that was too easy. Like I had to find something. And I just kind of fell on the idea that their depth is their greatest strength. It feels like an easy answer, and yet I don't know that you could point to anything else as an obvious one or one that really stands out as particularly strong. I do like the idea that if there's one thing, if there's a silver lining to the dark cloud of egalitarian offense, is that anybody can be good on any given night. And so you've got a lot of players that are capable of stepping up and at least playing a bigger role. Like even Myron Gardner playing well of late. Like he's had some moments. Jaime Jaquez, obviously, Kasparas Yakushonis. Like these guys are all playing well off the bench. Niko Jovic has been on and off, but again, at least that's a strength. Kel'el Ware. There are a lot of players on this roster that are capable of having good nights. It's tying it all together that makes it a lot more challenging. And so if I'm looking at a particular strength, that's really all I could see is that, you know what, there are a lot of fine players here, but I would just like them. And I know that I keep repeating this word. I would like them to do it more consistently.
Yeah, like I said, consistently is the superstar superpower, right? It's not the ceiling, it's not the heights, it's consistency, right? It's LeBron James doesn't have an 81-point game like Kobe Bryant does, but he's basically scored. What was that record? Like 1,400 straight games or something crazy where he scored at least 10 points. That's the superpower.
You pointed out. Yeah, you pointed out Norm Powell having one, and it's like we're talking about him being consistent this year, and I get your point overall. But LeBron James, like having done it for like 85 seasons
that's Cal
straight.
Ripken-esque, dude. That's like
I know, I get it. But still, like, I mean, that's just that's what you kind of want to shoot for.
Isn't Shea at 100+ games in a row with at least 20 points?
Yeah.
It's
that's something.
But and that's the thing, right? Like you don't see Shea Gilgeous-Alexander go off for 60, 70 points ever. But he's always 33 points. He's always 31 points. He's always 28 points. That's the superpower. And so when I hear people complain about consistency, like, oh, you know, they did it this night, why can't they do it the next night? Because they're not good enough to do it the next night. That's it. The superstar superpower is consistency. That's it. Corey Brewer scored 50 points in a game. Like your height, the heights that you can reach have nothing to do with how good you are as a player. Anyway, so biggest strength
catching strays here.
Biggest strength, at first blush, I said defense.
Ooh.
But the defense has not been that good lately. They were in the top 5 in defensive rating for most of the season, but that was based on a really strong first part of the year. They're 10th in defensive rating right now, as we talk here on Tuesday morning on January 20th. They're 18th in defensive rating since January 1st. The defense has not been good enough. I got to be honest, I don't really know if this team does anything at an elite level. They do a lot of things at an okay level. And it kind of feels like what Erik Spoelstra and this team has to do on a night-to-night basis is adjust the sliders on what they want to do. Do we want to be super up-tempo and maybe give up a little bit defensively? Do we want to try to be really great defensively, crush the boards, maybe slow the game down, not be as good offensively? They can't have it all. And that to me is a sign of a team that isn't as deep and isn't as versatile as they claim to be. I just sort of think that they're met. They're just met at a lot of things. In terms of their biggest strength, I guess it's just the tempo, right? And they don't even, it doesn't even, like their highest paced games, I've had this, like they're still number 1 in the league in pace. They're elite at just being fast. But I've made this point before. The Heat are basically 500 in their fastest games this season, right? When they've played really, really up tempo, it hasn't necessarily resulted in wins as much as you'd want. Like I said, they're 500 in their fastest played games this year. You want to be better than that. If the whole idea is we want them to play to our tempo so that we create an advantage, well, you haven't created an advantage because in your fastest games, you're 500. So I don't know that this team has a huge strength. I mean, Jaime Jaquez Jr., 6-man stuff, like they win a lot of those minutes. Maybe that's it. Like that second unit with Jaime might be their biggest strength. They do tend to narrow gaps or take leads there. That might be it.
I can agree with that. I mean,
yeah.
And that kind of shows the depth part of it, as I was hinting at. But
yep,
you're right. I mean, you look at this overall team, and it's just nothing really stands out, and that's kind of the shame of this group is that they play fast, and that doesn't necessarily translate to winning. They play defense well, but not well enough to actually be a good defensive team. Where's your strength lie? Like it's they are just kind of unfortunately much more mediocre than you would have expected them to be at this point in the season.
We're going to get to the weakest link in the Heat's team in a second, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the second half. We'll do that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can even connect online. And they handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver, and it gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, you can just file by February 28th. TurboTaxes, take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. That's turbotax.com/local. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen. Weakest link as we continue our midseason review. David, what did you come up with here?
It's going to feel like I'm kind of playing to the audience a little bit, but I've got to say, I'm just at that point this season where I'm a little frustrated with the Bam Adebayo scoring. And so maybe to say that that's the weakest link is overstating things. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's probably more of the defensive issue that would be their overall weakest link. But when I look at this team and what I can count on the least, it's what I couldn't get past, because I think we've seen too many good games from Bam lately. And then to have what we saw yesterday from him in Golden State, that's just unacceptable. And I'm not holding his feet to the fire or expecting more of him because of the contract. I don't care. It's not my money. It's not yours. It doesn't matter. And yeah, there are expectations that come with being a highly paid player, and that I get. But I think it's also just a matter of being much more consistent. Again, that word, and just being able to produce at a level where you could say, you know what, I can count on Bam to give me X amount per game. And you just don't get that. 1 of 13, that's just not going to get it done on any stretch. But we've seen too many good games, and just not knowing whether or not you're going to at least get, I just want to get 18 points out of Bam every night. And I don't even think that's asking for too much.
It's not.
And he's capable of much more. And so that's where I kind of just got stuck, is saying, you know what, you need Bam to be at least an 18 point per game scorer. And that's setting the bar really low.
I mean, he's 17 points per game this season.
Yeah, because you average in a 30-point game with a 10-point game, and I guess you come up with 20. Yeah.
I think they need more. Frankly, I think they need more. I think they need 20. I think they need 20 to 23 points per game from Bam. And with Tyler Herro being in and out of the lineup and mostly out of the lineup, it's Norm Powell is your only consistent scorer. I mean, nobody else really does it. Wiggins is not that kind of guy.
Shouldn't be.
And he's third at 15.8 points per game this year. Jaime, as good as he is off the bench, he's 15.7, so it's basically him and Wiggs right there. In terms of guys who are able to create their own shot and just make offense happen, it's Norm and it's Jaime. And then it's Bam sometimes, but I think you're right to say maybe weakest link does feel strong, right? I mean, overall, the Heat are still much better with Bam on the floor than they are off the floor. So you can't justifiably say he is their weakest link, but you could say that he's been their biggest disappointment. I think that's totally, like, depending on how you judge Tyler Herro just being hurt.
Yeah,
Bam has been mostly available and hasn't been good enough on a night-to-night basis this season. That, despite the fact that he just won Eastern Conference Player of the Week, right? Like, you just, to follow that up with a 1 from a billion performance against the Warriors and missing as many shots as he did, it's really frustrating to kind of take that step forward and take that huge step back. It is frustrating. So I get that. My biggest weakness here, though, the weakest link that I could come up with was just lineup inconsistency. Between Kel'el Ware starting and then not starting and then having Herro back and then out and then now Pelle Larsson starting instead of him. Like, I don't know what has been the right decision or the wrong decision. I just know that there's been a lot of different decisions made. And some of it's been on Spo. A lot of it's not. A lot of it's just injury concerns, right? Herro being in and out is the biggest reason why, and maybe that's the weakest link, is just Tyler Herro's body just breaking down. You look at their highest used lineups, their most used lineups this season, they've got 2 lineups over 100 minutes so far. The one that's played the most minutes is Davion Mitchell, Norm Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam, and Kel'el, right? The two big lineup. That's getting outscored by more than 4 points per 100 possessions this year. It hasn't been good. Miami's second most used lineup is with Ware, Larsson, Mitchell, Powell, Wiggs. So a little bit of that kind of tweener second unit mixed with some of the guys from the first unit. That group hasn't been good. They've been outscored by more than 7 points per 100 possessions. Their third best used lineup is actually a positive. And Heat fans might not want to hear this, but or maybe they will. I don't know. Davion Mitchell, Tyler Herro, Norm Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo. The lineup that Erik Spoelstra keeps trying to get to is outscoring opponents by 10 points per 100 possessions in 94 minutes this season. It's not a huge sample, but it's right. Yeah. It's close enough to those other samples that we're talking about that there's enough there where it says, yeah, if you can get to that lineup, that's the lineup you want to get to. Outscoring opponents by 10 points per 100, that's an elite number. That's an elite number. So when they can get those 5 out there, the Heat are a very good basketball team. The problem has been getting those 5 out there. Between all the injuries to Tyler Herro, Davion Mitchell's missed some time. Bam's missed some time earlier this season, with the back injury and stuff like that. So that's been the biggest problem, is just getting to your best lineups because of injuries and all these other things. The lineup inconsistency, to me, has been the weakest link.
Yeah. And part of that is, and I get that, though you would think that way, but at the same time, it's like, what lineup has really been out there long enough for you to point to any kind of particular strength and say, you know what, this group works well. Like, I know Spo is trying to mix and match players as often as possible. So when you say that part of this falls on Spo, and I get it, he's only doing what he can. It's like, you know what, I'm going to put these 5 out there. Well, that's not showing me anything special. So I got to bring in another 5, or I got to try another combination of players. So it just kind of all ties to the same thing where it's like, no matter how you put out there, the result is almost always the same. If you keep adding all the same ingredients in place, the result is going to be, well,
Right.
not good. And so I think that's kind of what you're looking at here. So it just kind of falls back on the same issues with a roster that just doesn't stand out and doesn't do anything particularly well. And I thought that they had found a recipe early in the season to make the most of what this roster was capable of. And now we're at this 43 game mark that we're using as a benchmark here to kind of assess what this group is. And it just hasn't worked. And part of that is injury, but I don't think the injury is enough to have derailed what we saw earlier in the season. I think it just kind of reverting back to form of what they are as a group.
All right, so our next category, second half goal. So now we're looking at the next part of the season here. David, when I think about what this, well, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think? What's the second half? What do you look at this team? What should be the goal for the rest of the year?
25-14, 39 games left. Win 11 games over 500 over the next 39 games.
And that would give the Heat how many wins?
Not enough, 47, but still.
That's not bad. 47 is a top 6 seed in the East.
Maybe it could be. I mean, I don't know that it's enough, but it should be. And so it's what this team was kind of slated for. It's what you and I expected out of this group to start the season. And now they're kind of behind the 8 ball, so they have to play really, really well. I mean, think about that. Like we just talked about the team that hasn't won consistently since January. They just haven't been able to do anything very well for a particularly long stretch of time. And now you're asking them to go 11 out of 8 games over 500. That includes the All-Star break in between. I don't know. That's asking for a lot from this group, but I'm counting on Bam to have that second season surge.
They have a softer-ish schedule coming up. It's something that I shouted out in our preseason predictions, where this is tough. Second night of back-to-back in Sacramento tonight. Portland, Utah, Phoenix. Like, that's not an easy road trip. This West Coast trip is never easy, regardless of who you play. But then you come back Orlando. That's a tough game. But then you get 3 straight games against Chicago because one of them was rescheduled. And then you get into the All-Star. I'm sorry, that's not right. But yeah, you get Chicago, Atlanta, which is good. They're good, but that's a winnable game at home. Boston's tough. Washington, Utah, New Orleans, Atlanta, Memphis, Milwaukee. I mean, these are winnable games, right, that you have coming up. So maybe there's a stretch here where they could start stringing together some wins. But like you said, they've got to take care of their own business first, right, before they start worrying about who's on the schedule. When I think about second half goal, I like that you were specific in terms of the wins and losses.
Yeah.
If they can't reach that, I do think that they need to be open-minded. That's the goal. Be open-minded. And what I mean by that is you're going to have real conversations. Instead of wearing this, we never take a step back badge of honor thing. Like, do your job, front office. Like, do the job. Don't just wear that badge of honor. You got to measure the value of trades that could potentially give this team real assets versus what's ultimately going to be a useless playoff push. Even make the playoffs, this team isn't going anywhere. And you could go back to the Thanksgiving Day special when the Heat were playing awesome, and I said the same thing. I don't get too high and I do not get too low with this team. I just see what I see. Sometimes they're a lot of fun to watch. Sometimes they're not. I know that they don't have the talent to win the championship, and right now they don't really have the means to go get that talent, more likely than not. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to make the playoffs again for no real reason? Or are you going to, if there's trade offers that come in for somebody like Norm Powell, Andrew Wiggins, Tyler Herro, probably not Tyler Herro at this point because of the injuries, but like whatever, it's not really important the player. Just if there's trade offers coming in where you can get real assets for those offers, you have to measure the value of those trades versus this blind faith and just like praying to the gospel of we always win, we always make the playoffs if we can. At some point, you got to have a real conversation as a front office. So my second half goal for them is be open-minded. And if you have to take a calculated step back, take it. Don't just do it just to do it, right? Don't just trade these guys just to trade them. Really measure the value. If somebody's going to offer you a really good first-round pick for Wiggins or Powell or something like that, you have to think about that. You can't just be like, we're the Miami Heat and we don't do that. No, you got to think about it.
Makes sense. I don't know if that this front office capable of making that change, but maybe they are.
Decisions we anticipate in the second half. What do you think?
Decisions I anticipate. Kel'el Ware starting. I think he'll get the starting job, and I think he'll keep it for the rest of the season.
If you get to a point where you determine that trying to make the Ware and Bam front court work is more important than winning games, that is a decision, right? Because the lineup data, all the numbers show you're worse when Ware and Bam share the floor together. Everybody's worse. Ware's worse, Bam's worse, the team's worse. But if the idea is to make it so they're not worse when they share the court together, then you're going to have to work through those growing pains, which I know a lot of Heat fans already want. But the Heat right now have decided that they want to try to win more than they want to try to get build the chemistry between those two guys, between Bam and Ware. Maybe at some point they have to make that decision where they say, you know what, we got to build that chemistry more than we actually have to win some basketball games here. I think it's right. I think that's a great one. I kind of already hinted at it. Should the Heat take a calculated step back? I do think they're going to get some kind of trade offer for somebody that means a lot to this team between now and the trade deadline. I think some teams will call and say, what's really going on in Miami? Is there a chance of us getting Wiggins? Like the Lakers have been linked to Wiggins since preseason, right? Is there a team out there that looks at Norm Powell with a one-year deal and says, you know what? Why don't we just throw a really good asset at the Heat and see what happens? I do think that these are tough decisions. And kind of related to that, do you have to make a decision of, do we kind of have to decide between Norm Powell and Tyler Herro? And do we have to make, is there an offer on the table right now that forces us to make that decision now, as opposed to maybe in the summer when we'd probably prefer to make that decision? So I think there are some tough decisions potentially on the table for the Heat going forward. But that's it for us today. Thanks for tuning into Locked On Heat. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Heat so you get all the latest episodes. We'll be back later tonight / tomorrow morning with our reactions to tonight's game against the Sacramento Kings.